Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's episode 49 of Late Night with the Gringo. We are back, and yeah, we've had a fun day. It's been one of those days. I turned 50.
That's right. Happy birthday to the one and only Gringo.
50 years old. Half a century. I reached the half century, and I got this really cool, before we started with everything, I love Legos. I love Star Wars, so why not Star Wars Legos? So son here got me the old Tanty 4, so...
Hey, it's the first ship you ever saw. So.
Hey, it is.
You needed it for the collection.
So, been a good day. It's been an awesome day. And just really want to say thank you to my wife and to my son for just a beautiful 50th birthday, so.
No problem, buddy.
It's been cool. So, but here we are back. And we got plenty of news to talk about because today, stock market dropped about 900 points. It's lost about $4 trillion worth of value.
Yeah.
And, the president seems okay with it. And we're going to talk about that and why he seems okay with it right now and why maybe we shouldn't be okay with it and why we should be okay with it. And it really there's two ways to look at this thing. And I mean, you see all these companies just selling off and you see all these things happening. But that's really the main story of the day is the economy. And then we've got some more news on Canada because they're going to, they're fighting back. And then we get the U.S. Supreme Court weighing in on some cases or weighing in on a case out of Colorado that could have some implications on whether or not we judge what is free speech and what is medical treatment and how doctors can act within a can doctors, what they say, be legislated? When you actually go to see a doctor, can we legislate things that they can and can't tell you or health professionals? So that's going to be an interesting case, but they've decided to take that up. We're going to get into that a little bit too. But first things first is definitely the stock market. Holy bejeez. Now, here's the way you can look at it, right? There's a ton of people out there that could care less because they don't have money in the stock market. And there's a bunch of people out there that really care because they have a ton of money in the stock market. And there's an interesting statistic that came out that 50% of Americans only own about 1% of stocks. So you take 1% of what the entirety of the stock market is, it's 50% of Americans because they can't afford it, right? It's a luxury. Right? Not everybody can have stocks. But then you start to look at the other groups. 1% of the wealthiest own something like the majority of what the stock market is. And you get that middle ground. You got people who got 401ks. And those are the people that really I think we should be really concerned about. The people who got 401ks who are just trying to sock something away. So hopefully one day when they turn 65 or whatever they turn to be able to say, I want to retire.
Hey, maybe even 50.
Maybe when they turn 50,
maybe
right?
When they turn 50, right?
Their 401ks, that's their lifeblood, that's their nest egg. And so the people who are watching those things, those are the people that I really feel bad for and feel concerned for. And I think we should have a little bit of empathy and compassion for. Because as this trade war continues and these tariffs go on and the uncertainty continues, I don't see this ending. It's been a 10% correction in the market since it's December. So a 10% correction. And we're looking, maybe we're saying, are we going to have a recession? Now, a recession is defined by two straight quarters of negative growth. It looks like this is going to be the first quarter of negative growth. Now, the way things are turning out. Now, could things turn around in the back half of this first quarter of the year? It could. Do I think it's going to? I don't think it's going to, but let's get into some of this stuff. Let's do a little screen sharing because I love screen sharing. I love it. I love the screen share. Oh, baby. There we go. Okay. As you can see, we got a bunch of stuff pulled up here. Yeah, here we go. Boo, there it is. Almost 900 points. U.S. stock market, like I said, loses $4 trillion in value as Trump plows ahead on tariffs. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, it's the tariffs that are causing this, and they're probably right.
Yeah, I'd probably side with them. It sounds about a fair assessment. I mean, the market reacts to what is going on in terms of foreign relations and what can affect the market at home. And tariffs definitely will affect industry and how they plan for the future, especially tariffs that aren't consistent.
Yeah, that's the big
That's the big one. If they were consistent, at least it'd be like maybe a week or two where they adjust. Okay, we have to figure this out and that out. But because they change so often, as we talked about last stream, it scares investors away.
Yeah, and I think people are starting to are looking and going, hey, they're taking their profits, right? I mean, it's been an all-time high stock market, so I think they're just taking their profits right now going, we don't know what the hell is going to happen, so let's take our money now and run and kind of sit on the sidelines and see. And even the NASDAQ's had a 10% correction, confirmed 10% correction from its December peak last week. So that's a big deal. So this is Reuters, and take it for what it is. President Donald Trump's tariffs has spooked investors with fears of an economic downturn, driving a stock market sell-off that has wiped out $4 trillion from the S&P 500's peak last month, when Wall Street was cheering much of Trump's agenda. Now, we had the Trump effect, they called it. When he first got elected in November, the stock market soared, thinking, okay, he's going to do what he did the first term, but he went heavy on the tariffs. Now, again, this isn't really a debate about whether tariffs are good or bad. It's a debate over how you're going to implement them. And right now, there's sort of, as you said, their tariffs are on, the tariffs are off, the tariffs are on again. We're going to put, and so there's so
extensions.
Yeah, there's extensions.
And then there's talk about what they're going to do after.
And then there's pauses, and then there's all sorts of other sort of nuanced trade deals that we have to, we made the trade deals, so we have to abide by them. I mean, that's just, respect, you abide by the trade deals you make. And all this does is it's like a seesaw. It's just an up and down yo-yo of investors going, okay, things are going to be all right. Things are not going to be all right. Things are going to be okay. How do you plan for that? And how do you cannot put, it's betting, right? When you buy stocks, investing is, it's betting. I mean, you got a lot more information to go off of, right? It's not like you're just like, hey, I'm going to put all my money on red and spin the wheel, right? No, it's not that. But there's a lot more information. But still, in the end, investing is betting. It's gambling. And no one's going to gamble that kind of money most of the time without having some sort of information. So there's a huge sentiment and change in sentiment and shift in sentiment. So the stock market sell-off deepened today. The benchmark S&P fell another 2.7%, like we talked about. The NASDAQ composite slid another 4%, its largest one-day decline since September of 2022. That's a big one. The amount, and down here at the bottom, and here's where you got to kind of figure out sort of like what is the, whole thing right here. The amount of uncertainty that has been created by the tariff wars with regard to Canada, Mexico, and Europe is causing boards and C-suites to reconsider the pathway forward. They don't know what to do. They don't know, should we make long-term plans? Should we make long-term investments? Are we going to get tariffed on these things? Are we going to run into roadblocks because we're going to put tariffs on other countries? They're going to put tariffs on us.
And should you make deals with new companies or manufacturers? Because once you make those deals, they have to be honored. You can't be like, we're going to make a deal with you, but we might jump out in the middle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly.
Because then not only does that reflect poorly on your stock, it reflects poorly on your board and your investors, which then also reflects poorly again on your stock. So
yeah.
And these companies don't have the money to be able to take certain hits like this. And also that's a lawsuit coming. I mean, you signed a deal now because you're in a tariff war, but now the tariffs are kind of off, so now you're going to get out of that deal. That's a lawsuit. So they don't know how to operate right now.
So they just don't want to get involved. Now, here they say people can understand ongoing tensions with China, of course, but the Canada, Mexico, and Europe part is confusing because, again, I think a lot of things have been communicated well by this White House, but I think this is one of the things that has not been communicated well by this White House because there's so much changing. I don't think they can really craft a message behind it. So you look at Delta Airlines. Delta Airlines shares are down 14% in aftermarket action because Delta Airlines said, listen, we don't think people are going to have the money to travel, so it slashed its first quarter profit estimates by 50%. I mean, thank you for being honest and thank you for saying, hey, we don't think we're going to make that kind of money. So, yeah, I love it when companies are honest and say, we're in trouble and, people should know about it. Our investors need to know about it. Of course, that's the law. You have to do that, but, not everybody does. Right. So it's nice to see Delta Airlines be honest about these things, but damn, down 14%. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot for people who have that maybe in their portfolio. Right? I sure as hell, if I had Delta in my portfolio, I'd be like, yeah, let's dump Delta right now before it gets even worse. So now, and here's the other side where the Trump administration says they're a little more accepting of the idea that they're okay with the market falling and they're potentially even okay with a recession. Now, no one said that, but they kind of seem it. I mean, President Trump seemed kind of bless you.
Thank you.
He seemed kind of waffling on whether he thought a recession would happen or not. All right. So even okay with a recession in order to exact their broader goals. And he said, I think that's a big wake-up call for Wall Street. Now, the percentage of total corporate equities, this is what we talked about, mutual funds, that are owned by the bottom 50% of the U.S. population, basically the 50%, the poorest 50% of the U.S. population, they only own about 1% of mutual funds and corporate equities and stocks, while the same measure for the top 10% of the population stood at 87%. So the richest 10% own 87%. So in a way, do I care whether the richest 10% of the people in the world lose some money that they probably won't even notice that they're losing? No, I don't. But again, it's that group of people in the middle that we're not talking about, right? It's that group of people that have their 401ks that have been putting money away, and maybe it's junior's college fund or whatever, right?
Right.
Those are the people that are going to be like, oh, crap.
Yeah, we're talking about the normal middle class America here that they have stocks because either they had stock options at their companies or work, or they bought into some 401k or investment firm plan in order to retire late. And those people are going to be hurting bad because guess what? A lot of these upper class people who own a majority of the stock market don't rely completely on the stock market. They have assets. They have tangibles. They buy what
property, houses,
properties,
art,
gold. What would you call gold and silver? There's
precious metals.
Not precious metals. Another term for it. There's another term other than asset and not liquidity. I can't remember the term right now, but my point being, these people do not have to worry about. I mean, of course, you're going to be still a little bit worried because it hits your net worth and it is still a part of your income, sure. But in comparison to middle class America, who outside of these stock options really probably don't have many precious metals except for the wedding rings they may have. That's it. Yeah, that's their future. Yeah. So
look at this. Apple dropped 5%, and Nvidia both that dropped 5%. Apple's 5%. What's 5% of 3 trillion? Because that's their valuation is around 3 trillion, right? That's a crap ton of money to lose. And so if you're an Apple investor and you're like, damn, okay. Tesla tumbled 15%, shedding about $125 billion in value. So Elon lost some billions. Even Bitcoin dropped 5%. Ether dropped 5%. So a lot of things are dropping. Oil's dropping.
5% drop in a was it trillion or 3 trillion?
3 trillion.
3 trillion in valuation. $150 million. Billion. Yeah, shit.
150 billion.
No.
150
million.
Okay. Well, that's how much it dropped. So, anyways, that's a lot of money, and that's a lot of stock to lose, right? So, we're going to see again. Oh, here's this chart. Here we go. This is stock market ownership, right? The top 1% own 50%. Between 90 to 99% wealth in the United States, they own 37. So here's that 12% that I'm kind of concerned about, right? That's that 12%. I mean, I'm concerned about the bottom one, right? We don't want them to get screwed either, but these are the 401ks right in here.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the bottom one is probably a couple individual stocks that people are just trying to buy into.
Yeah.
Could be penny stock. Who knows what those are? Again, still important. But again, the real heart of this in terms of like the American people would be that we have there 12%?
Yeah.
That 12%, which is those 401ks. And you know how fishy those can get at times with the market.
Yeah.
Because they're diverse and in that case kind of secure. But they react very, very harshly to like significant change. So
they do. And, so not only do we have tariffs and trade war, but we have geopolitical tensions like this we talked about yesterday. There's war everywhere. I mean, the Middle East is just on fire. Ukraine and Russia are sitting supposedly in Saudi Arabia today that we're trying to get things, done or get that war settled, but they're still bombing the crap out of each other. And the economic outlook is uncertain at best right now just because of what's going on and how the market's reacting. It's not a good formula, right? And
no.
I'm not saying that we're in crisis mode, but it's like these are the things where you go, all right, we got to get a handle on this and figure out what we can do to make this sort of stabilize, right? And it's not going to stabilize because when we get into talking about Canada, they're ready for a fight. Whether they can win that fight or not, they're ready for a fight, and that's going to get ugly. Especially if we're talking about Canada and one of our largest trading partners, right? And now this is also spilling over to Japan and the Asian markets, which again, not good because you don't want other foreign markets to go to crap. Now, Japan's been having economic difficulties off and on for the last couple of decades. Australia's S&P, their stock market, that fell around 1.4% in early trade. So it lost all its gains from previous sessions. Japan's Nikkei is set to fall when it opens, and it's probably just opening now. So I don't know. We could probably maybe later on take a look at it, but that's set to fall again. All right. The Hong Kong index is, slightly weaker, and so that affects China as well. So we have all this stuff happening. It seems like all the financial markets around the world. Now I'm not sure where Europe. I didn't get a chance to check out Europe's indexes, but when Asia starts to go and the U.S. starts to go, Europe's probably already gone. All right. They're probably already there. So this stock market drop isn't just like, hey, we had a bad day. No, we've had a bad few days and it wants clarity and we've got to figure it out. Is the administration going to say, to hell with the stock market? We don't care because we have these broader goals of making everything an even level playing field? Great. If that's your broader goal, okay, cool. Come out and say that. It'll make the stocks a little bit more jittery, but you know what? At least we kind of know what's going on. If it's not your broader goal, or if it's not like if you really want the stock market to stay healthy long term, because once the stock market goes, like we've seen it before, we've seen it in 2008, stock market goes, well, there goes the economy, there goes all the banking stocks, there goes all that stuff, right? Saw it in the 90s with the bubble burst for techs. All right, well, that hurt. Saw it in the late 70s, early 80s. Yes, I'm that old. I told you I turned at the beginning of this, I turned 50. Right? I've lived through, if we're going to count Trump as like two different terms, two different presidents, I've lived through 9 presidents now. All right, anyways. So I've lived through it then. It's not pretty and takes years to recover. It's not like the economy doesn't just grow healthy the next day. It takes years.
It's easier to tear it down.
Oh, yeah.
Than to build it back up. And I looked at the Nikkei market. They opened. I think they've been open for now a couple hours. They're down 1.7% already, just to start off.
Please.
And they've got what looks like to be 3 o'clock. They've got pretty much like about 4 hours of torture.
Oh.
Which is, I feel bad. So they're gonna maybe hit probably 2, I think.
Yeah, they're panicking.
They're panicking. And then what's the other big market you want me to look up in Europe?
Check out Europe's. Check out Germany's. Germany's and see how they're doing.
They aren't open yet.
They aren't open. I mean, how did they do yesterday?
So, well, I'll check here. The Frankfurt Stock Exchange.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to check anything in Europe, and I have a feeling that they're going to be pretty much there. But I mean, the trade war is on, and there's no stopping because Mark Carney, who won the race to succeed Justin Trudeau as Canada's prime minister, well, he came out swinging today, and so did one of his governors or premiers or whatever you want to call it of Ontario. So good luck if you live in Minnesota or upper Minnesota and all those that area of the country because electricity is going to get real expensive in a few days, and we're going to cover that in a second as soon as we figure that out. But Mark Carney, as we wait to see that, but Mark Carney came out, gave his victory speech. In much of his victory speech, Carney, 59, who's a central banker, so he's an economist. He's a liberal, but he's an economist, but he tried to move these liberals a little bit to the middle, attacked Trump, who has imposed tariffs on Canada, and said he wants to make the country the 51st U.S. state. Quote, Americans should make no mistake, he said, in trade, as in hockey, Canada will win. Okay. Not really he's thrown down. Carney is expected to be sworn in the coming days and will lead the Liberals in the next general election, which could be called in the coming weeks. Now, will he stay prime minister? Will he win that election, or will the Conservatives take over? We don't know. But here he's Britain's former top banker. All right, so he knows banking. He knows money. He's not a dummy. He talks tough on Trump's threat, but can he reset relations? And bourbon is out, patriotism, and how Canadians are facing Trump's threats. We're going to talk about Jack Daniels in a second because that got weird. So So he won, right? But here's his conservative opposition, who I think is actually going to win. Right? He's more Trumpian than anything. Which is, if you like that, you like it. If you don't, you know. Much of Carney's speech focused on what he called Trump's unjustified tariffs on Canada, America's largest trading partner. The U.S. imposed levies of 25% on Canadian goods last Tuesday, but rode back within days to exempt goods compliant with an existing trade agreement. Like we said, right? So we tariff Canada on all this stuff, and then a few days later, we're like, oh, no, we're just kidding on that, but, you know. So there's a lot of uncertainty. There's the uncertainty. Canada responded with retaliatory tariffs of its own as Trudeau accused his U.S. counterpart of trying to collapse the country's economy. Yeah, I mean, heavy tariffs could do that. I mean, that's not, I mean, as much as I don't like Justin Trudeau and his policies and his politics, he's not wrong there. He's really not. So Carney echoed that in his victory speech, that saying Trump was attacking Canadian workers, families, and businesses. We can't let him succeed, he added, as the crowd booed loudly. So Canada really is really anti-American at this point. You know, most Canadians will boo you. You know, it's like if you're an American, all right, I guess that's where we're at. He said the government would keep tariffs on U.S. imports until the Americans show us respect. So now we've got a prime minister out there saying that the country's being disrespected, that it's being attacked economically. The U.S. are now the bad guys. Actually, he actually says that, actually. He goes, I know these are dark days brought on by a country we can no longer trust. All right, them's fighting words. I guess, yeah. I mean, if that's how you want to feel about it, okay. I can't argue with you because, yeah, we are putting tariffs on you. Yeah, we are going after you, but it was unfair. You know, we feel like there's an unfair trade practice and we're trying to bring it back. But again, all right, he also says, we're getting over the shock, but let us never forget the lessons. We have to look after ourselves. We have to look out for each other. We need to pull it together in the tough days ahead. Carney also pledged to secure our borders.
Secure our borders.
Yeah, secure our borders, right? So he's really, you know, and they're calling Trump, and you've heard this before, an existential challenge. So
listen, the only existential challenge in Canada right now is the Toronto Stock Exchange, which is, as of today, from what I understand, down 1.5%.
Oof, okay. Well,
it lost 378 points in value.
Wow. So yeah, they're hurting. So
they're not doing too well. This could be an index on the Toronto Stock Exchange in general, but that's rough if you're already down 1%.
So here are Carney's key policies. So here's what we need to know about the guy who's throwing left hooks and right hooks at Donald Trump right now from north of the border. The former central banker has run on a broadly centrist agenda as a shift from Trudeau. Like I said, he tried to move the very liberal party, to the middle, okay, because they've been losing votes and they're losing voters. A major promise is to push forward major energy projects. He wants to build pipelines, which have faced political roadblocks in recent years. And he's promised major investments in housing and clean energy. He wants to liberalize trade with Canada. Here's what I didn't know. That between the provinces, like, okay, it's really difficult to do trade. I didn't know that, right? And then he wants to, cap the government, the size of the federal government. Trudeau expanded the Canadian federal government by 40%. That's what kind of leader he was. He's very liberal, very progressive. Thought the government was the answer to everything. Now, there's been a bunch of stuff that Canada has done to us, or going to do to us. This guy, I kind of like this guy because he's tough. He's like, listen, you want to fight? I'll fight.
I give him credit.
I kind of like him.
I mean,
it's not like I'm rooting for him to win, but I kind of like him, because he's like going to stand up and say, hey, even if I'm going to get knocked down, I'm going to stand up and take the shot. But he is the governor of Ottawa, basically the province of, he's the Canadian province of Ontario. He's the governor of Ontario. He does not like Trump and the tariffs. And they're putting on a tariff from Ontario, a 25% surcharge on all of its electricity to the United States, which is kind of significant, which will be about an extra almost $300,000 a day that Americans are paying in that northern section of the country. So, and he says it's not going to stop. He said, literally, we're not going to stop. I want to get the where he talks about it, but until these tariffs are off the table, right here. Until these tariffs are off the table, until the threat of tariffs is gone for good, Ontario will not relent, Ford said. That's his last name, Ford. He added he wouldn't hesitate to increase the charge or cut off power completely, depending on the Trump administration's tariff policy. including whether the 25% tariffs in April after a 1-month reprieve. He goes, I will do whatever it takes to maximize the pain against Americans. So he's all in. There you go. And he goes, and I hate saying that, Americans, because it's not them, it's President Trump. Well, we all voted for him, so if you're going to go after Trump, you're coming after about 65, 70% of the country. So this guy's all over cable news. He's all over that. I saw him on.
He's making a good case for himself.
He is.
If he goes for the prime ministership. Yeah. But
I mean, I saw his interview on Fox News, I think it was like 4 days ago, and he was just fire and brimstone. And then Trump's economic advisor came on afterward, and they said, well, what do you think of that? And he goes, Trump's economic advisor goes, that guy's not helpful. And just kind of just acted very diplomatic and talked about the things he needed to talk about. But yeah, he's all fire and brimstone. He's all there. So, imagine the northern part of Minnesota getting the electricity shut off.
Yeah. I mean, the 3 states, okay. Ontario. So this is according to the Ontario newsroom. So this is from Canadian source. Ontario currently exports electricity generated across the province directly to Michigan, New York, and Minnesota. All right, so 3 very big states for the most part. New York being the biggest, then Michigan and Minnesota, in my opinion. Sorry, Minnesota. And Ontario exported about 14.6 on average terawatt hours.
Oh, wow.
Which is not an insignificant amount.
That's not an insignificant amount. Yeah.
I mean,
Michigan, Upper Peninsula, about to go dark in a little bit. So, that's what we see there.
Well, Detroit's always going dark.
Well,
Detroit.
It's Detroit. They have issues of their own. They have such budget problems they can't keep the lights on sometimes. But no, love Detroit. It's not going to pick on Detroit. I'm going to pick on Detroit. We always end up picking on Detroit.
Hey, listen, Michigan's in the news, so
So we've got dropping stock market. We've got tariff indecisions. We've got Canada punching back. We're going to have Mexico. Well, Mexico seems to be a little bit easier going right now. We're going to end up putting these April 2nd. Here come all the reciprocal tariffs. That's when the real fight begins, right? This is all prelude. Once April 2nd hits and all the reciprocal tariffs around the world go into effect, it's going to be interesting. Now, before we get to other topics, because I still want to stay in the economy, there are some interesting things that pull this right off. In case you missed it, here's the other side, right? So tariffs, companies eye U.S. expansion to lessen fallout from potential tariffs. I'm going to give you the list of companies that are either considering or planning on moving stuff from foreign countries manufacturing into the United States because they're concerned about tariff wars. Campari, which is, I guess, an Italian liquor, right? You lived in Italy, you know Campari, right?
Yeah.
All right, they're assessing the opportunities to expand its production in the U.S. Compal Electronics, a Taiwanese contract laptop maker, thinking about coming to the U.S. or at least moving something to the U.S.
That would be good, actually.
Yep. Essity, a Swedish hygiene product and tissue maker. Okay, cool. Could move more of its production into the U.S. from Mexico and Canada. All right.
You need more toilet paper?
Yeah, I guess so. Honda has decided to produce its next-gen Civic Hybrid in the U.S. state of Indiana instead of Mexico to avoid potential tariffs. Cool. Hyundai Motor, South Korean automaker, said on January 23rd, planning to further localize production in the U.S. to minimize any tariff impact. It also said it would make hybrid vehicles at its new factory in Georgia. Cool. Inventec, the Taiwanese company which makes AI servers that use NVIDIA, which is a big deal, opens new tab chips, has begun evaluating locations in the U.S. investment, favoring Texas due to its proximity to Mexico and power infrastructure. Cool. Go Texas.
There you go.
South Korea, LG Electronics is going to move its manufacturing of refrigerators from Mexico to its factory in Tennessee, where it already makes its washing machines and dryers. That's not a small thing.
That's pretty big.
That's pretty big.
That's a pretty big deal. And that's going to bring back some jobs there, which is nice.
Yep.
And hopefully it saves LG money in the long run while also opening up opportunities in the area. So that's hopeful.
There's some other names on this list that kind of stun me. Samsung Electronics, South Korean tech giant, is considering moving its manufacturing of dryers from its Mexico plant to its plant in South Carolina. All right, cool.
Not bad.
That's, again, significant. The Chrysler parent, Stellantis, is moving forward with plans to build a new midsize pickup truck in Belvidere, Illinois, set on January 29th. Cool. Volkswagen, which we're in Puebla right now. Volkswagen's a big deal down here. They have a huge presence here, right?
They run it pretty much. In terms of like manufacturing, this is the standard. Yeah. And pretty much in Mexico. But this is where they really, really hold their key territories.
Yeah, absolutely. But here's what they're going to move. The German car maker is considering setting up production sites in its U.S. for its high-end Audi and Porsche brands to avert fallout from tariffs, which was reported on January 29th. The company did not immediately respond to Reuters for comment. And the last one, Volvo cars. Volvo cars may move some production to the U.S. depending on tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump. So you have all these companies that are going, we might have to move to the United States and start building the stuff there, which is what Trump wants.
Yeah, that's why I remember what I told you, I think, about a couple of days ago?
Yeah.
On stream, I said, these tariffs are designed to bring back manufacturing to the U.S. to some capacity and reignite certain industries within the U.S. that have been more or less dormant or dying in the past decade. I mean, you name states there. Illinois, but Indiana as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Illinois, Indiana, Indiana's getting the Honda.
Right?
Yep.
That's the Rust Belt getting manufactured.
God, they
back
need
again.
it. God, they
need it. They need it. They need it. And if he can manage to kind of bring back jobs there, it doesn't matter what hardship that he goes through right now, because in the long run, he's gonna be able to tell those people, his constituents there, I brought what I promised. I brought your industries back.
I think bottom line, though, what we take away from all this is going to get messy.
Absolutely.
This is going to get messy. There's going to be a lot of, I don't know, there's going to be profits and losses. I think there's going to be more losses than profits in the next upcoming months. And I think we have to be prepared for that. And I think we have to prepare, for inflation to stay maybe a little high. And again, that's not a good thing. We'll see how it all pans out. But right now, it's a mess.
Yeah, it's messy right now. I mean, Japan, 57 minutes breaking. It doesn't say here on the Google knowledge graph or the finance graph here, but apparently over there, the Nikkei index dropped over 1,000 points based on the Wall Street losses. They saw the losses on Wall Street and they were not confident. I think since then, it's bounced a little bit back up, it looks like. But it's still definitely a loss for the day. It might be dipping back down right now. Who knows? But it's a rough time for all the major economies that are doing trade with the U.S. and China, because it's a tariff war, and that's what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's the economy in a nutshell as of the Monday of starting this week. We'll see how it goes. We'll keep an eye on it as it goes. But I think that's a lot of economic talk. So we're going to switch sides. I wanted to update one quick thing. We talked about Amy Coney Barrett a couple days ago. Remember, we talked about how conservatives are really mad at Justice Amy Coney Barrett,
right? Saying
that she hates Trump, right? So they asked Trump today in a press gaggle on Air Force One, Mr. President, many of your supporters are concerned about conservative that your supporters are attacking SCOTUS Justice Amy Coney Barrett because she's voted against a few things that Trump wanted. That's her job. You put her on the bench. They're saying she's a DEI hire. Do you regret putting her on the bench? The president, look, she's a very good woman. She's very smart. And I don't know about people attacking her. I really don't know. I think she's a very good woman and she is very smart. And that's how he left that. So take that for what it's worth. They asked him a question. Is he giving a truthful answer or not? Who knows?
Yeah.
I think he is. I think he's fine with Amy Coney Barrett. I think she's doing a fine job. I think, again, like you and I talked about, she's voting against things that are going to come back up again a second time because she realizes there's some pitfalls. She's playing chess, and I think the people who are mad at her playing checkers are probably not even playing at all.
They're playing dominoes.
They're playing dominoes, whatever.
It's dominoes, but it is what it is.
So it was very interesting, and they talked about a lot of different things during this press gaggle. I'm not going to get into everything to talk about China. I guess they're going to set up a meeting with him and Xi Jinping. That'll be interesting. Fine. Talked about Elon, talked about all sorts of stuff, and so then it was funny. I'm getting down. They're going, "Oh, we're landing. Oh, we're landing." They're like, "Yeah, we got to go. We're landing." I never knew how that worked, but yeah. But there you go. So just an update on Amy Coney Barrett. She ain't going nowhere. I don't think she's going nowhere.
No.
I mean, she can't go nowhere. It's a lifetime appointment.
Unless she chooses to resign, but
she ain't. No,
well, this would be the time. You have a Republican majority.
Yeah.
If you really don't like the job, but I think if you went through the confirmation to get it, I think you really want it.
So 3 stories that are really kind of interesting here, and they really kind of this one I wanted to pull up. This is NPR, which is never good with Trump. They always hate Trump, but this is their headline. Deadliest phase of fentanyl crisis eases as all states see recovery. Gee, I wonder why. I wonder why the fentanyl crisis is getting better. Could it be we elected the guy who said he's going to do these 3 different things He's going to secure the border, put pressure on Mexico, Canada, and China, and he's going to increase. The ability of ICE to arrest gang members and cartels and make those people terrorist organizations. Gee, I wonder if doing those three things actually worked. Let's find out. In some parts of the U.S., drug deaths have plunged to levels not seen since the fentanyl crisis exploded. Addiction experts say communities still face big challenges. Of course they do. Right? So
they need a paycheck.
Yeah,
They gotta say that.
yeah. Are you surprised by this? Like, is anybody like, is this headline? Do you look at this headline and go, yeah, no shit, right?
Yeah, this seemed pretty obvious. It seemed pretty standard of listen. You secure the border, you're gonna be able to stop a lot from coming in, right?
Yeah.
And if you start talking to the countries, where this stuff is produced, I'm looking at China and I'm looking at Mexico, and even Canada. Surprisingly, I mean, the production there is quite extensive. Turns out, you can stop a lot of this from reaching its target, essentially.
Yeah.
And you can protect the American people from a disastrous health pandemic, right? Or epidemic, I should say.
These numbers are going to blow your mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. First of all, quote, "This is not a blip. We are on track to return to levels of fatal overdoses before fentanyl emerged," one researcher said on the project. One lead researcher said on the project, which examined overdose records from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. All right. Now, fentanyl really started to spread during the COVID pandemic at the same time, so it was a 1-2 punch, so you had a lot of deaths. Okay. Quote, "After all this time looking at overdose deaths, this is what we've been hoping for. It has been a complete shock to see the numbers declining the way they've been. Every state, including and the District of Columbia, has seen some sort of recovery at this point, right? So, and it continues. What we've been hoping for. From fentanyl, it's a 30.6%. Let's just say 30%. Make it easy. It's a 30% drop in deaths from this time over this time last year. That's a huge reduction, and so people are very excited to see this, of course. But I mean, a 30% drop year over year. That's incredible. And gee, again, I wonder why.
Right.
I mean, no offense, the previous administration was fine. Okay, we talked about we talked about economics already, and people say, well, this administration, Trump's okay with the stock market going down and people losing money. Okay, the previous administration was fine with people dying. Mm-hmm. Okay, pick your poison.
But my question is the study. I do have a little question about that. They say year over year, right?
Yep.
So they're comparing February of this year or March. Which month?
They January and February. Okay, I think it was December, January, February.
Okay, December a little hard to judge because Trump isn't in office.
Yeah.
So I wonder how much of a drop was there. But it seems like Trump really pushed this into motion, which is good for him. Good for him. That's something he can write home about.
So, in the Kensington neighborhood of Philadelphia, which is an absolute crap hole. I'm sorry, people who live there. Sorry if you live there, but it's not good. Mm-hmm. Where drug use has long been a widespread public health concern, people told NPR they believe the situation has improved. Thank God. Thank God. Right? So, yeah. And so we're actually saying, can the U.S. return to normal drug deaths levels that's not seen since fentanyl? I don't know what I know. All right, here's it. Statewide in Pennsylvania, drug deaths are down roughly a third from its peak. At least 18 states have seen similar drops, with Arkansas's 40% drop, and North Carolina with a 52, almost 53% drop, achieving the biggest improvements. Okay, cool. Let's keep doing what we're doing. Let's keep saving lives, buddy. Let's just keep saving lives. That's awesome. So I found this article and I said, no kidding. When you start actually addressing the problem starts becoming better. All right. Little update here. We talked about my nickname for this guy is Dickhead. This is the guy who basically one of the guys who he helped start all the protests at Columbia University, denying students rights to education by blocking and taking over all that shit. Basically, he's a Hamas supporter. So we arrested him. Liberal New York judge, has said, no, you can't deport him yet. We've got to figure this out. It's just a temporary thing. This guy's going away. So I just want to say, hey, this is just an update of something we covered yesterday.
It's going to go to court.
It's going to go to court.
It's going to be probably quick.
Bye-bye. You're bye-bye.
I just feel bad for the I do feel bad to an extent for the woman.
His
who is
wife?
pregnant.
His,
Yeah, his
pregnant,
wife,
his 8
yeah.
month pregnant wife who's a U.S. citizen?
Yeah,
I feel bad for her too.
I feel bad for her because now she's not going to have her husband and the father of the child in the same country.
Yeah, we
But
don't.
listen, that he chose to do something. I mean, the guy had it all. He went to Columbia, Ivy League school.
Yeah.
Had an American wife and child on the way.
Yep.
Probably had job, maybe work lined up. I imagine you're going to have a child. You're in New York City. You've got something going for you, whether that's in the city or somewhere else. And you chose to throw it all away because you wanted to protest for Hamas.
Yeah.
I get he's probably intended for mostly Palestine, but still, you protested in favor of Hamas and what they were fighting for.
Yep. He had anti-Semitism is not going to be tolerated.
Yeah.
Sorry. Guess what? Because anti-Semitism, this country, what was it now? See here, 60, 80 years ago? 80 years ago, this country went to World War II to alleviate or eliminate anti-Semitism in Europe. We ain't going to put up for that shit here. We're just not.
No.
We're just not. Know your history, know where you are, know your location, okay? You want to do that shit, go over to Gaza. You want to do that shit, go over to Syria, go back to Syria.
I mean, fine. You
want to be an anti-Semite? Go do it over there.
The other thing is you're protesting at a university.
Yeah.
If you really want to have a protest like this, there are many protests that happen, I'm sure, in New York City that don't have to occupy, public buildings or private buildings where there are students.
You want to protest?
Yeah, you want to protest. You have a right to protest. Sure. I mean, don't protest for the terrorist organization.
But protesting and not allowing people to go to the school and take the classes that they paid hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of dollars because you want to throw your temper tantrum? Okay. No, we're not putting up with that shit. No. Sorry. Bye. So, although it's not clear yet what he's being charged with, who cares? Khalil's arrest appears to be among the first actions following Trump's promise to deport international students who joined the protest against Israel's war in Gaza across college campuses last year. Legal experts point out once there is an allegation, the only person who has the authority to revoke a person's immigration status, such as a student, visa, or green card, is an immigration judge. That's not really true. Green card holders have broad rights as legal residents of the United States, including the right to work and protection by our laws of the United States, the person's state of residence in local jurisdictions. The State Department declined to comment because on Khalil's case, noting visa records are confidential under U.S. law. So, yeah, but he's not staying. No, they're not going to take the L. Believe me, Trump's not taking the L on this one. Nope. So, he's going bye-bye. He has a green card. Yeah, I know. And you have to, again, when I went through the green card process with my wife, you have to actually say that you will not, or you haven't in the past, and you will not in the future, support terrorist organizations. Well, you're supporting terrorist organizations.
Yeah, the only defense he can maybe have is he was like, oh no, I was personally supporting for the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Authority, or PLO.
Yeah.
What is it? The PLO, right?
The Palestinian Liberation Organization.
Organization. I can't remember what else stands for. Again, the problem is these protests started around the Israeli response to October 7th and the Hamas attack and kidnapping and hostage taking essentially of innocents. I mean, you can't separate it from your protest because there are also a lot of people there who admit they're protesting in favor of Hamas.
Yeah.
So, and you organized it, which means you didn't contain it to what it was supposed to be. So you're at fault, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, I guess fortunately, right?
Yeah.
I say unfortunately because I never want to see somebody go through a hardship, right? Mm-hmm. But you did this to yourself. I mean,
any other country, they would have put this guy in jail already.
Probably.
That's God bless America. You get that kind of freedom. All right. Story here. Here we go. We're going to have something for the LGBT community here, right? The Supreme Court takes up challenges to Colorado's ban on conversion therapy for LGBTQ plus minors. All right, what is this? Okay, so
you said a lot there, Gringo.
I said a lot there.
Need a rundown here.
Yes, the Supreme Court is going to take up this challenge. So, a counselor in Colorado is challenging the ban on. Okay, so let's say there's a minor who identifies as LGBTQ plus. They come into this counselor's office looking for mental health or help or whatnot, guidance, whatever it might be. According to the laws in Colorado, that counselor is not allowed to suggest conversion therapy. Do you know what conversion therapy is?
Is it a therapy of becoming essentially a straight individual?
Right? Pray the gay. Pray out the gay. That's what it is.
Oh, like those religious camps.
Or something like that, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be, it's usually tied to religion.
So something straight out of not just South Park, but the what is that? I'm thinking of the Griffins. What's the show?
Yeah, Peter Griffin, Family Guy.
Family Guy. I can't remember the name. Jesus.
So they're going to hear this and decide, okay, is this an issue of free speech? Does this counselor have the right to suggest all methods of therapy, all avenues, give the patient all of the options? Or does the state have the right to limit what can be shown or offered as treatment in medical situations, including psychological situations? It's actually quite an interesting question because I think it's a free speech issue. I think because, hey, guess what? It's illegal to be so close to an abortion clinic and praying. People go to jail for that for years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're shutting that down. So it's like, is it a free speech? Is that a free speech issue? Is that a safety issue? Is that a harassment issue? What is, again, it's gonna tie into that eventually. But so they're gonna hear this, and I can't wait to actually hear. They always, by the way, if you're ever interested in a Supreme Court case, they do you can never watch. They never video. You never see it on video, right? But they do the audio, and you can just go to their website when a case is being heard. Go to the USSupremeCourt.gov, and it'll be right there. You click on it, it'll stream the audio. You hear everything, the arguments, all the questioning, everything. So now the thing is, this ban that's being challenged has been enacted in more than 20 Democratic-led states. And this is coming as the court is expected to give a green light to GOP-led states' efforts to ban gender-affirming care for minors. So this is a pressing national issue, they're saying it. We need the Supreme Court to weigh in and make it clear that counselors should be free to help these kids that are struggling with these issues, and that they shouldn't be put in a straitjacket and forced to direct them only in one way. That's one way to look at it. Or, again, is this a religious thing? If it's religious, are we putting religion on kids who maybe it's not their religion?
Right.
This is more fascinating of a case. So for people who are like, oh, it's anti-gay, it's anti-this, it's not. This is the freedom of religion, the idea of separation of church and state. This is free speech. This is who has the right to determine what your medical options are. The state, your doctor, you, right? There's a lot. And this is the reason why I think this Supreme Court, John Roberts said, yeah, I'm going to take this case on, because it's him. It's usually him who picks the cases. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting, right? Because lower courts in Colorado called it a ban on treatment. They're banning certain treatments that they find not worthy to be. But again, they're saying this is a free speech issue. So, but anyways, that's that. What do you think?
Well, I think it is really compelling because, I mean, you can't obviously blame the minor for going into the office and seeking for help, right?
Mm-hmm.
But does he have some sort of responsibility in understanding if you're going to go seek for help, you might hear options being told to you that you may not want to hear, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then again, he's a minor, right? So where do the parents factor into this in terms of like what should be offered to their children?
In a state like Colorado, minors have rights that they don't have to actually involve their parents in some of these.
Okay,
things.
so in that case, then they have some responsibility, which would then make me believe if that's the state and that's the rules you're going to play by in the state, the counselor has a right to offer all available options or options that the counselor believes is reasonable to offer to a minor.
Yeah.
Now, if he is or she is offering a option that is clearly affiliated with one religion, becomes a little problematic, right? If we're talking about conversion therapy conversion therapy, if I'm not mistaken, is it? Conversion therapy, and it's not associated with a religious branch or organization, a little different, right? So you say they're typically, if not always, associated with some sort of religion?
Usually, yes.
Right? But are there some that exist that aren't?
Normally isn't. No, I'm sure there is. There could be. I don't know of any.
Right.
Normally, every time I hear about this, it's a religious organization, right? And here, just some more background on this so people can get even more background. Colorado officials said the restriction, which was passed in 2019, is needed because of overwhelming evidence that conversion therapy harms young people, including by increasing the risk of depression and suicide. The American Psychological Association, the American Psychiatric Association, the National Association of Social Workers, and other leading medical groups have all repudiated the practice. Quote, this is from the Attorney General of Colorado, Phil Weiser. In Colorado, we are committed to protecting professional standards of care so that no one suffers unscientific and harmful so-called gay conversion therapy. The state defines conversion therapy as attempts to, quote, change an individual's sexual orientation or gender identity, including efforts to change behaviors or gender expressions, or to eliminate or reduce sexual or romantic attractions, or feelings towards individuals of the same sex. Great. Okay, let's say we accept that. Is there another law in the state that says teachers are allowed to change their students' pronouns without telling their parents? Because to me, that's an issue. That's conversion therapy.
I was just about to bring that up.
Right? One side of the coin, the other side of the coin, right?
If counselors can't provide the option for conversion therapy, why do minors and teachers who aren't related to the minor, except for the professional relationship that exists there, are able to be involved in the private life of that minor? Because let's be honest, whatever their orientation is or however they want to be identified as is not the responsibility or the job of a teacher in any classroom. That is the job of either the minor itself and their parents. Or until they become an adult, when it becomes 100% their responsibility and choice. And I think if you're going to shut down the conversion therapy option, right? I'm not saying it's going to work and I'm not advocating necessarily for it. You're going to have to go back in some of your other laws because now it's going to be seen as in violation of this Supreme Court ruling. Because you can argue the other side, as you mentioned, Gringo. I mean, it's a tough battle. And I think they wanted to have this fight, Colorado. Yeah, at first, but I think now that if they start to think about the implications of a ruling, whether it's on their side or the other side, the implications can be severe because then it can change a lot of their state laws and a lot of things that they have going right now. So,
well, they rejected this. They rejected a similar case out of Washington in 2023. Right, very similar circumstances, similar laws. But once John Roberts says, "I want this case," he needs three other. This is the other thing. He needs three other judges to say, "Okay." You need four judges to say, "We want to hear the case." Well, we got John. I think you got John Roberts. I think you got Alito. You got Kavanaugh. You got Thomas. Right. So last time when they were in the court said we don't want to hear this crap, Alito, Thomas, and Kavanaugh said no, we want to hear it. So they need one more. So it had to have been Roberts. It could have been Barrett, but I'm betting it was Roberts that said, "Yeah, we'll hear this case." Yeah. So they're going to hear it. Again, yeah, you're right. This is a I love U.S. Supreme Court cases. I think they're fascinating. It's not about rooting for who's winning, who's losing. It's about how it's interpreted and what type of standard is set forever.
Right.
I mean, most cases are set forever. So you're going to hear this case in the fall. So this case won't be heard until probably September, October, right? Maybe they get put on the docket for August, but usually they have a little bit of a summer recess. So we'll have to hear it then. We'll have to follow up on that.
Who are in the case specifically? Is it Colorado versus this counselor, or is it counselor versus
Childs versus Salazar? So I'm not sure who Salazar is.
Salazar probably is the
Childs is the counselor. That's the last name. It's
I thought they were just saying Child because they didn't want to name the kid.
No, Childs. It's
Childs.
Yeah, Childs challenge Colorado. Childs versus Salazar is expected to be heard. Salazar has got to be either he's not the district attorney. He's not the attorney general of Colorado. It's got to be. Who's the governor? That's the thing. Who's the governor of Colorado? I don't know.
I'll look it up here.
Yeah, the law applies to Kaylee Childs, who's the counselor who challenged it. So,
let's see here. Nope, it's Jared Paulus.
Then it's got to be the.
Is it the high school or the school?
It's not the school. It's got to be the counseling center that's actually telling her you can't do it. So, based off of the law, so that's what it's got to be.
Okay.
We'll see.
We're gonna see. This will be interesting. We'll see how this plays
it'll
out.
be it'll be fascinating. I mean, I could talk about Supreme Court cases all day long.
No, I know. Very, very, very.
Just loved it. By the way, if you ever get a chance to go see the Supreme Court, walk in there, take the tour. Friggin' awesome. Nice cafe down below. We had a nice sandwich.
There you go.
I had chicken salad. Anyways. Well, it's my birthday. I'm gonna go eat some ice cream. I'm gonna have some candy. I'm gonna have some cake. I'm gonna pig out. I'm gonna do unhealthy things. Basically, is what I'm gonna do. I'm going to do that, and you're gonna help me.
Am I?
I don't know what you're gonna do. You can do whatever you want. I'm gonna eat some Haagen-Dazs or whatever it is that we bought. But anyways, with that, we've been here for about an hour. We're gonna sign off for today. I'm gonna go watch some Monday Night Raw. Everybody from south of the border, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Salud.
Salud.
A huevo. We out of here.